Alrighty, guess I'll go first. I will time myself. Let's see. I think it's gonna be challenging because I'm trying to give context since it's Trace's first time, plus show kind of like iterations, but I think this will be an interesting practice. Alrighty. So welcome everyone. My name's Chris. So for my case study, I was really thinking about how to rethink productivity and work-life balance with Headspace. So for those that don't know, Headspace is a meditation app. And during COVID and the pandemic, circa 2020, the dark ages, when everyone went crazy, I think this was a time where my anxiety as well as just my self-realization was at all-time low. And slowly through picking up meditation and practicing, it enabled me to have much clearer thoughts on a day-to-day, as well as just find kind of like the direction I want to take with my career, as well as just relationships with people. So I thought if this is something that I found value in, I think it'd be interesting as a case study and really apply that towards the B2B side of things, because Headspace is a subscription-based thing, and companies pay for a certain number of seats, and that kind of like contributes to kind of like its growth on the B2B side. So we've all seen this before. Trying to create your schedule on a day to day, maybe moving things around because, oh, it's 5 p.m. now. You thought that you'd be able to do that one item, but you're a little too tired or just not enough energy. Raise of hands who's felt this way where they've had to kind of like push things to the next day, the next week, and sometimes things don't get done. Yeah. So really thinking about that, as I was practicing meditation with Headspace, it helped me kind of like reduce the amount of times I'm doing that. And they've had studies shown that 14% show less burnout after 4 sessions of using Headspace. In a month's time, there's a 32% decrease in stress, as well as an 11% increase in resilience. For the purposes of this case study, we're going to be focusing on the burnout portion because getting individuals, especially employees who are new to getting Headspace for free, if they can like experience those benefits like quicker, they'll be able to kind of build resiliency and lower their stress as they practice more. So in my research, talking to a bunch of people, you see, if you're an anime fan, Deku on the right here, it's going crazy. I think after talking to 5 different individuals ranging from startups all the way to big companies like Fang, a lot of individuals found it cumbersome to pick a meditation suitable for their needs. When I say that, it really boils down to being overwhelmed with the options and having decision paralysis around that. As you see on the right side, this is how the existing app looks. So when you get inside, there's a lot of options. Depending on your intention and whether or not you even know what's going on, it can be a lot to kind of take in. And because there is a lack of guidance on what you want sometimes, especially if you're new to meditation, without the right context, it makes it difficult to choose something when, let's say, oh, okay, you have a meeting that's coming up in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or you're commuting to work, or you're tucking your kids in to bed. There's just so many things going on that individuals who are new trying to kind of get into this app and try to practice and experience those benefits, they don't even get past that first hurdle. And then ultimately it ends up looking like this. And that is something we do not want. Mhm. So in the context of kind of showing you exactly how we're changing the redesign or how I'm redesigning it, here are specific individuals. So Jenny is a mom. She's working lots of hours. She's also community volunteer leader for her kids. And then she's losing her spark with her husband because of the stress and just like balancing all that. Lisa, on the other hand, is her coworker. She's working 2 jobs to pay mortgage and loans. Sure, her wedding is coming up in 3 months, and she's running very low on sleep. What these two have in common is that they're kind of like churning every day. Their jobs as accountants, as well as like during tax season, makes it excruciatingly painful, especially if you mess up a single number. It can kind of like change everything up. So kind of like going in between all that is really stressful, and how, at least since they have access to Headspace, we want to make sure that they're able to maximize those benefits and find a clear-headed mind. So this is kind of an example of what happens in, let's say, Jenny's life. So she's crunching those numbers on Excel. She has a 7 a.m. commute. Takes about an hour for her to get to work, and then she has to pick up her kids after work. And by the time she's kind of like done with all that, She still has to wake up in the middle of the night to let out the dog, take a piss. So finding time in between all that to actually meditate or even get into the app is extremely difficult. And all these numbers are coming up. So we want to make that a lot easier for her. Ultimately, this is her life every day. She says this is fine, but is it really though, Jenny? Is it really going to be fine? I don't think so. So kind of talking about that, diving deeper into the nitty gritty, the user goal for Jenny and Lisa are to quickly find a personalized meditation to practice mindfulness. And they want to do this intentionally between their work and personal lives. So at least they're keeping their sanity, just even if it's by 1%. And this in turn goes back to combating burnout, reducing the stress, as well as improving resilience that Headspace is aiming. So in terms of my specific design goal, I'm trying to reduce the amount of friction from the information fragmentation, as you've seen with like the amount of choices I showed you earlier from the main screen, and streamlining this process for users to understand and identify those relevant personalized options to pick easily for practice. For example, Jenny, she's getting off work right now. She has about another hour commute before she gets home and has to pick up the kids. By the time she gets home, maybe she has about 15 minutes. So if there's something that can help her kind of calm down and reset from her workday before picking up her kids, that'd be great. Yeah, as I mentioned, consolidating options to reduce friction in picking meditation, increasing relevance to quickly find a meditation, and providing the users enough context to pick a meditation when they're unsure of those choices. I'm not going to dive too deep into these, but these are the main goals that I'm working towards. As we think about how we can bring AI, which is a very relevant in this day and age, Headspace actually is interesting because one, if we are able to integrate things such as Google Calendar, Outlook, as well as Yahoo, and sync specific schedules in your day and align time gaps and find those times where individuals can practice 10 minutes, 15 minutes before their next item that comes along, it'll be extremely helpful. Using natural language processing as well, we can pick up on keywords such as meeting, one-on-one coffee chat, as long as a long list of things that are going to be continually added to be able to pick up, oh, is there a Zoom link? Is there a Google Hangouts? To strategically suggest better recommendations. So kind of going into my user flow, this is the first kind of couple screens that I'm working on, where the landing page will show a kind of top part, as you see labeled number 1 in the far left. You're going to be able to connect your calendar. The screen will proceed by showing you what the feature is, and then you'll be connecting with your calendar. So out of all my visual design ideations, talking to John, talking to some previous PDF cohort members, as well as Jen, I deduced that going with this version where the star is, a clean, simple logo with the calendar, as well as the AI sparkle would be the best bet for me to kind of increase users' kind of like understanding of like, oh, this is a calendar, without overly complicating it. Likewise, for the second one, this landing page or the onboarding page to kind of show what the feature is, I went through a couple of iterations, playing around with color, layout, the icons, as well as the visuals overall, using ChatGPT to kind of like suggest how to condense information as well. And it's still a huge work in progress, but the closest one I have right now is this middle one here, utilizing the simple calendar icon, and then kind of like going with a conversational copy such as your pathway to finding time for Headspace will help you find pockets of time to meditate if you sync with your calendar. Try now or maybe later. So when you're actually adding a calendar, I went through a bunch of iterations for this, but ultimately after talking to Jen and just kind of like thinking back on how to increase the amount of visibility without overly complicating like the copy on the screen, I went with a Calendly inspired approach, as you see on the left here. And then for editing, I was kind of like, okay, I'll just don't reinvent the wheel, just go for what works. So I just kind of repurposed it. For the second flow, it's basically just like creating notifications. And what I decided on is to kind of like go between giving a lot of autonomy as well as giving some like autonomy with it. And then, as you can see here, I'm currently showing like the colors as well as like daytime as well as nighttime. And then finally, actually syncing your calendar. Once it's synced, I think the version I'm going with right now to show that. So for example, you see here, Google Calendar, call with John in 30 minutes. Originally, that was what I was going with, but in the context of actually being helpful, it's not as very impactful. So I'm going with like the Google Calendar or the calendar visual here on the far left. This is a work in progress, but I'm going to repurpose the existing UI as well, so I don't have to spend that much time on it. Yep, and that is my presentation. 10 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, I could definitely cut that down.
That's okay. Good job overall. Okay. Oh, I would hand it away. Let me add my last comment here. Okay. Yeah, I might just talk to like add in some things, but these are some things I want to call out. First off, I love the personas that you did share. I felt like it was easier for me to see why meditation was hard. Like I felt like you're really showing me. And like and depending on what they're doing during the day, they might not know what to choose based on just where their mind might be at that time of day. So yeah, I thought that was really great. For your screen, if you go back to it, it's the, hey, try this UI, this calendar integration. It was like a few screens back. Uh, I, yeah, but before that, I love the friendliness of this, and I actually think you could just maybe share more about this, like struggling to find time. I love the header. I think this is rather than saying, hey, use this calendar. I don't know what you called that one point, like use this calendar AI tool. Like I think that's not as catchy. So I really like that you leverage like this easy to recognize experience, like struggling to find time. So really love that you did that. I think you could maybe elevate your message more about why this screen is so important. Like from like a business impact standpoint, you need a lot of people to come into this app in order to engage. You're providing an entry point. You're explaining the value. That's gonna increase like your top of funnel, which is just more people are gonna try this because this seems so attractive. The copy is really friendly and inviting. So yeah, I think it's a super friendly screen and huge improvement on providing more just context as to why meditation is hard. So I really appreciate that you took in that feedback and improved. So awesome. Um, some things for areas of growth. I do think there was a lot of focus on the user persona. I wonder if there's a way to maybe synthesize some of that stuff more. I think after a certain point, I was like, I wonder what's the design part now. So I think that's something I noticed with a lot of like portfolio presentations. They want to know the problem, but they want to spend like too much time on the problem. So I at one point I think it seemed like we were going through the user persona journey like twice. I'm not sure if that was exactly what I remember, but it seemed like there was some parts that seemed kind of repetitive. So I think it's fine to just like state the schedule once, like, oh, person like walks their dog and this and so forth. Oh, other thing that I did not put in here that I also really liked. It's not funny, but it was like kind of like, whoa, but in like an empathetic way. When you said she's losing the spark with her husband, it's like it's a real thing that people actually go through. So it definitely caught me off guard, but in I don't know. I like that. I felt it kept it real. So I appreciate that you put that. Um, Other things, I know she put like a lot of design options. I think it could be helpful to maybe just show a few contenders rather than like all of them, because it is hard to see the differences. So yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of limiting what's on the screen and just walking us through like maybe some of the trade-offs you're making. Um, I think it could be helpful. For example, here you could say your trade-off was originally you wanted to explain a few things about why someone should use this calendar event and all these things, but the trade-off would be that you would take up so much space and that would be overwhelming to the user and they would actually be turned off by the screen. So the design choice was you added a learn more. This is enough to entice them, and that's how you try to balance like how much information you provide to get people excited. Um, yeah, really good job, Chris. Yeah, I just want to pause there. It's just yeah, see how you feel about the feedback and
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for the feedback. I think I was kind of like juggling between like one, the storytelling, and two, kind of like finishing, like not spending too much time talking about stuff. So I think I got more attached to like telling the story than like at the end. I didn't really like talk about the actual designs as much and kind of like articulate those design decisions. But I think for next week, because I am prototyping now and it's like there's not much of anything to ideate upon, to show. I think I'll kind of clean up the presentation more, to balance out the rationalizing certain design decisions as well as just kind of like reducing the amount of stories I'm telling. But no, everything you said makes sense. I think I'm gonna kind of like try to reprioritize how I'm doing because like this is like I didn't spend as much time like putting together the end of the presentation. I was just trying to put everything on there, show that like train of thought, and then kind of like showcase the final thing I came up with. Mm-hmm.
all right. Oh, well, no, thank you. Yeah, well, we can work on the presentation over time. I'm hoping by the end of the month we'll clean it up because it's gonna be something you could repurpose for your portfolio presentation. Uh, Pretty much a lot of this sets you up for that. So, cool, great job. All right. Thanks for providing feedback, John. Tracy, if you could leave some feedback, that would be super helpful. Great, thanks. All right. Mm, Sorry, the cat takes our food, so I have to stop her. Okay. John, would you be able to go? Or Tracy? I don't know who wants to go first.
Yeah, I can go. Unless Trace, if you want to go, by all means.
Yeah, I don't mind. I should type in like my feedback, right? For
Yes.
Chris. If you want, you can start off, John.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Chris, can you stop sharing? Thanks. All right, let's get started. So hi everyone, welcome to my presentation. Today I'll be talking to you about my case study on Airbnb, specifically reducing decision fatigue on Airbnb, and focusing on the whole decision-making process. So the main problem area that I'm focusing on is that guests aren't able to find their optimal listing in a timely manner. What this means, there's two parts to this. First part is that they're not able to find their optimal listing, which is the listing that is most tailored to their needs and their wants. And the second part being timely manner. A lot of people aren't able to find this optimal listing in time for their trip or in time before the listing gets taken. So if you see here, the guy on the right, he's like planning a trip this weekend, going to New York for a honeymoon, and he just doesn't know. He has all these options and so little time to decide that he's doing so much research in and out of the platform. It's a very overwhelming process for this guy, and we're trying to reduce the amount of effort and time that goes into planning these trips. So through my user interviews, the 3 pain points that I figured out were the most important to focus on was the first one was that information is fragmented across multiple listings. What this means is that a lot of times when you are looking at a listing and trying to evaluate it, a lot of the details will be scattered across different areas of the app, and also requires you to do a lot of due diligence off of the app. So a lot of times you'll be considering a listing, but really the things that you're considering are in so many different places that it's hard to come to a decision about whether a listing is even desirable. The second pain point that I came up with was that guests need to take a lot of extra steps in order to collaborate with other people. If you look here on the right, there's a trip that I went on a couple years ago to Lake Tahoe, and it was just a bunch of different people sending different links to this group chat, and like really it was just things were getting lost in the stack because everyone was just spamming the group chat, and eventually we never went on this trip. It was just we just like it's the truth, we just never went on this trip, and I really believe that it was because of this very hectic planning process that everyone just got super overwhelmed, and yeah. The last pain point that I figured out throughout my research was that users need to take a lot of extra steps when they're researching listings and trying to figure out whether a listing is desirable to begin with. And the problem with this is that you got to do this for almost all the listings that you're considering. You got to go off the platform. If you look here on the right, for my trip this weekend, I was like looking at things to do around Redding, which is like a city up north in California, and I just couldn't figure out, like, had to pinpoint where the Airbnb was, which is like this point right here, and I was like, okay, I need to figure out like which things to plan, and yeah, so it's just a lot of different steps. Not only are you using Google Maps, you're also going to like Expedia to like book different things, going to like Southwest to see like where the airports are. It's just a lot of different things you have to consider.
Did you just say Southwest?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm traumatized by them.
Yeah. Yeah, so for each pain point, the goal that corresponds to it is when information is fragmented across multiple listings, you're not able to compare well. So you want things to be consolidated in a way that you're able to make decisions in one place. For the second one, we want to help users collaborate with each other, and for this collaboration to be smooth and as easy as possible for everyone in the travel group, including the primary planner and everyone that's helping the primary planner plan the trip. For the last one, we want to make it easier for people to evaluate a listing's desirability without having to do all this research on platforms outside of Airbnb. And the main business impact of solving a lot of these problems is that people aren't going to abandon Airbnb as a product throughout their user journey, because what happens a lot of times is that they go through this planning process, they do their research, and they end up abandoning Airbnb because it's just so overwhelming, so tedious, and it doesn't become, it's like less of a vacation and more of a chore for a lot of people. And for the user impact would obviously be being able to find the listing that most suits their needs in time for their trip. So going over what I worked on last week. So last time we had some sketches, and from those sketches I pulled out 3 or 4 of the ones that I thought were going to be the most impactful. And earlier I had these 3 buckets. I had lack of context, lack of collaboration, and lack of ability to compare. But I kind of dumbed it down to 2 buckets because I realized that most of my solutions that I thought would be the most impactful fall under collaboration and context. So 3 of the scales that I came up with. The first one is showing minimal amount of context that would help the user come to a decision, and showing a lot of context so the user knows exactly what's going on. Second scale is intelligently serving guests. So for example, if someone's helping you, they know exactly what you want and they help you. Like, you don't have to do a lot of work on your end to get to your final goal, versus having a lot of autonomy for the guests. So being able to plan every single little thing on your trip and having a lot of control as a user, opposed to the products. And the third one is a top-down versus bottom-up approach, which is top-down approach is much more the leader makes the decision. Bottom-up is democratic, so everyone helps make the decision. And going over, so the first bucket would be lack of context. So this idea right here, I was thinking something similar to ChatGPT, where people just, it's like a free form conversation, right? You're talking to this AI agent as if it's an actual travel agent. So this is one end of the spectrum where people have a lot of freedom. They can use it to plan their trip. They can use it to look for things nearby. But I guess the main issue with this is that it's honestly like very overwhelming, and a lot of times it doesn't help you get to your goal faster, I feel like. And so this is just one idea I came up with. Another idea I came up with that's kind of like the one I just showed you guys, but less autonomy in terms of like free form responses, is more buttons where it'll ask you like, what would you like to do? Would you like to adventure, relax? You have a family, you want to go on a date at this place, and it'll sort your responses based on the things you like to do, or also like how are you getting around, like by car, transit. So it'll take these things into account in order to refine your search. So it's a lot less inputting text for the user and a lot more just like pushing things to get your search results. And another one that Jen actually suggested was adding a filter to wait, this isn't it. But yeah, this one, you add a filter for your saved listings, and you can actually filter by the location, prioritizing listings that have the most things to do nearby, that are close to like public transit and safety, or you can prioritize by price, which one gives you the most bang for your buck. And the last but not least, you can sort by the amount of convenience that the place has to offer, which is kind of translated to the number of amenities and quality of amenities. And then here we have more collaboration. Wait. Oh wait, sorry, scrap that. I'm still on lack of context. So for lack of context, here we want to add a location rating, which is just a simple number under the actual rating of the Airbnb listing that shows you what the rating of the location is. And the issue with this is that like you don't really know what it's based off of, like why we're getting 4.8. And so that's why I kind of came to this idea where you have some sort of a breakdown. So you have like 4.8, and then you'll see like why it's 4.8, which is like based off of 3 factors. The first one being, what is there to do around this area? Second one being, is this close to the airport that I'm coming from, or like the nearest train station I have to take? Or 3, is this a safe neighborhood to be in? And these little blurbs down here, the Airbnb host can fill it out based on like each category, which is like things to do, accessibility, and safety. Another version of this was to do something similar, keeping the scores, but instead of having the blurbs, doing a Airbnb activity list of things to do near the listing. So this will, I feel like for this, it's a lot of business impact because people will be able to add these activities to their trip, integrating them into this Airbnb ecosystem a lot more than they already are. And so yeah, this is the idea. So this was adding a pin and then seeing how far things would be from this pin. So you click this button, you'll be presented with the screen. You put in like, let's say I'm going to Outside Lands, and you put in Outside Lands, and then you can see that if I'm taking the bus, it'll take me 8 minutes to get to Golden Gate Park or Emerald Bay State Park. And on the other hand, in terms of collaboration, I was thinking something simple like a like count. So people that you add to your wish list, they can increment this like count. You can't see who's liking it, you can just see the number of likes. This is nice. I feel like this is nice because it doesn't invite too much collaboration to the point where it slows down progress, but enough to see what is liked by your travel group in general. This one is a little more personal because now you can see people's faces and who's liking what under each post or under each listing. And this one is like very integrated, very bottom up approach where people are literally able to have discussions on each listing. This one I kind of don't want to do because I feel like this will actually slow down the decision making process. Because if you have too many heads in the pot, too many, it's I feel like if anything that might hurt or hinder coming to a decision. And last but not least, this one is like a polling option where people are able to drag around. So someone can start a poll and then they'll drag around these. Let's say there's 4 listings you're considering. They'll be able to like prioritize which one they rank, submit it, and then they'll be able to see everyone's the general consensus. The reason why this is nice is because compared to likes or the like feature, it allows you to like certain listings over other listings, and sort of reflect what listing you like most, what listing is like second best to you. The con here would be that you have to have an opinion about each single listing. You can't just like reflect your opinions about one listing by liking it. You generally will have to put something last or yeah. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I went a lot over time, but I think that's it.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I feel like if you budget for like 7, you might go to 10, and then ends up being like a good amount of time. All right. I left feedback so far. All right. Thank you for putting in your real life screenshots in the problem section. No, it was better late than never, but it was actually really entertaining, and I feel like it was easier for me to visualize and empathize with what users are going through. Like seeing like so many people in this iMessage thread, and even seeing like the Google Maps, like that was really helpful.
Yeah.
I really like that you said it feels less of a vacation and more of more like a chore. I feel like saying things like that really is like, whoa, yeah, that's true. Like it feels so counterintuitive when you say things that are that are like the like when people do marketing, they're like myth, eating healthy sucks. I don't know, something like dramatic. It's like, whoa, like
Yeah.
it's pay attention. I
Uh-huh.
think that's really what could be like a great way to hook your audience and like talk about it such a chore, and that's so counterintuitive because you're here to relax and you don't want to, you'd hope that all your planning like pays off and you get the thing that you want. So I really like that
Yeah.
you put that. I think you did a really great job of doing the scales and explaining your scales. This is actually what most people struggle with, is trying to create a spectrum of ideas and articulating like both ends. And I think you did it really well when you talked about like democratic versus top down. I think that's that's a concept people already understand. I mean, like being in America, or yeah, I guess anywhere. And I mean, it kind of is like not like a government, but there's decision making. So
Yeah.
it helps guide the uh the different approaches and how people work together. So I really like that you said that. It just made it easy to understand your breadth of ideas. So you did a great job of that. I absolutely love the accessibility score that you have. I don't know if there's a better word, but for me, like, because I recently went to Chicago and didn't have a car, or if I'm visiting big cities, accessibility is like #1 for me because
Mhm.
I don't want to rent a car, right? So I feel like if I don't have to. Um, Overall, I think you did a good job of sharing the pros and cons in your designs. I think you mentioned like if you show the likes, or sorry, if you prioritize, what was it? Yeah, you show the likes on one hand, like that's good for seeing like how many people like this, but if you do the prioritization, it's like that's good for trying to see what most people like, whereas likes, everything's just flat. You don't know which you like more than others. There are other things you mentioned, but for areas of growth, I would say this is something I think you do a good job of setting up the context for the problems and the goals, but think that you could elevate more of your design rationale by incorporating your research more.
Okay.
Or like you could say, if you're saying like, oh, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, was there something in user research where you did hear that can complicate things? So, I think incorporating like decision could be helpful. You could say, I'm trying. Can you zoom out so I can look at some more of the designs?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like the location. Just maybe saying people really focus on location when they travel, so that's why you are making it like so much larger on the screen, and it's taking more of that screen real estate because it actually like it does take up more of that thinking process when it comes to picking out a place.
Okay.
So yeah, don't forget to like always reference that research as much as you can because it grounds it more versus saying like, oh, I feel like people won't like this. And you do have good intuition. And I know you've done the research. It's a matter of communicating to your audience, like, oh shit, like this really connects back to the research.
Got it.
Yeah, I think yeah, some other things, just small things you could do to elevate some of this. I think like say like the Airbnb travel agent, I think the concerns that you had are probably similar to concerns other people have, like, oh my gosh, like is this even possible? So you could
Mhm.
say, oh, Expedia actually has something like this. And if you look at other tools like Duolingo or whatever, so many people are coming out with AI tools now, they all
Yeah.
have some kind of idea like this technology is possible. Because I think some people just get kind of skeptical. I mean, you even told me, you're like, is this possible? Like, can you
Yeah.
incorporate? Yes, you can.
In terms of like the features that I have for like this AI implementation, do you think it's something that because like for example, like okay, this like feature, I'm like, okay, that definitely needs to belong in there. This location is like definitely some version of this needs to belong. But like something inside of me tells me like this is questionable. This might be harder to justify. It doesn't make sense immediately to me, like that it would fit with the product. But do you think there's potential here, or like do you think it's better off if I just focus on other areas?
Yeah. So some things like there's this thing called the Kano model analysis, which is a way to see how people rate potential features. So an example of, I think, a performance feature are they're not gonna like die without it. Like like there are table stakes features, like you absolutely need to have filters for listings. That's not even there's nothing special about it, but people get it. The performance features mean that the more that the user uses whatever feature you have, the more satisfied they are with their product. Then you have delighters, the competitive features, things like this that are more innovative, a little bit more like in the pie in the sky territory. It's
Mhm.
not as obvious that you should build it, and it's newer. Sometimes the things that are competitive, delighters, eventually over time become mandatory or table stakes as the industry changes. If we only did performance-based features, it's helpful, it's just not gonna make Airbnb competitive. Did
Yeah.
X need to create a travel agent? Like, no, but it's novel, it's really helpful. People don't expect it, but they really like it. Just because people don't expect it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. So I think that's why usually for deciding on like what to do, there's an argument for doing any of these features. But I think the thing that you think is going to be, if you think like some of these are going to be really game changing for Airbnb, like and you really believe in it, I would say go for it.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Other things, I like that you said that like you surface experiences like the Airbnb ecosystem, a way to just elevate why incorporate the Airbnb ecosystem. You could say you want people to spend more time and money through Airbnb. You don't want them I mean, if they want to go pay for some other excursion elsewhere, so that's lost money. So the benefit here is that if they book, like the per trip, it's actually more money spent per trip. It's
Mhm.
not purely just the booking. So that's a way to talk about that business impact.
Okay.
I know we talked about it. It's just like a matter of saying it, practicing saying it in a presentation. But also like your design work is like amazing. These are great wireframes. They look so like
Thank you,
really
thank you.
entertained by looking at them. So yeah, good job. Yeah, I know you're behind on the Figma stuff, but you seem to have caught up. So good job.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, Tracy's turn. So kind of what we might go over a little bit, but yeah, it's your turn.
Okay, well, first, for John, those wireframes look super good. And because I was kind of typing Chris's feedback while you were presenting, I'm gonna like watch the recording and then actually type anything, but like it looks really great so far. And
No, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's all good. Whenever,
professional.
whenever it's done.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so today I'll be, oh, do you guys see my screen? Just double checking. Okay, so today I'll be just presenting some of my findings from pre-week. So for my case study, I decided to choose League of Legends, which is a multiplayer online battle arena game that is developed by Riot Games. So just in case some of you guys don't really know the game, a really brief intro to it is that in the game, players can assume the role of many different champs that have like varying abilities and skills. And the main objective of the game is to compete in teams, capture objectives like the Drake or Baron or anything else that would basically benefit your team, and ultimately defeat the enemy team Nexus. So the gameplay overall entails a lot of strategy, team coordination, map control, resource management, like decision making, like a lot of aspects to it. And overall, the game is also quite competitive. They have like their own ranking system where players can be ranked from Iron to Challenger, which Challenger is like the highest rank and Iron is like the lowest. And also League of Legends is also a very they have a very strong presence in the competitive esports community or environment. So all this competitiveness also just kind of drives players to want to like improve their performance. And so just moving on, the complex like game, it's overall a very complex game involving lots of mechanical skill, strategy, team communication, coordination, and a lot of different aspects, which kind of makes it difficult for players to improve and get better at the game. So the problem I want to explore is that players want to improve, but often they don't really know how to. And this can lead to frustration and disengagement with the game. So the user impact from resolving this kind of problem is ideally players will have more guidance and can ultimately help improve their performance. And by improving their performance, this can lead to higher motivational or dedication levels and just overall improved user enjoyment and enjoyment levels. And tying it to the business impact, as users feel more motivated and they dedicate more time to improving their performance. This can lead to higher user retention and engagement rates with the game, which can ultimately help increase the revenue as players just spend more time on the game and possibly spending more money. So the platform I'll be using is desktop because it's desktop game, and the target users I want to recruit for include League of Legends players who want to improve their performance in the game, and ideally I would like a mix of players both players players who want to improve and have shown improvement or progress in their performance throughout past years or seasons, or also players who want to improve but have been struggling to kind of see progress throughout the years. And moving on to some of my mistakes I made during my first week is that overall just like not letting solutions drive my problem exploration. So one of the big mistakes I made was I was basically working backwards. I would explore solutions, or I would think of like possible improvements or recommendations for an app or software or anything like that, and work backwards from there to find like the problem. But the issue with that is that like ultimately, if you don't really explore your problem deeply or actually focus more on like the problem itself, you won't really be able to find a problem that is impactful for both the user and the business. And some of my key learnings is just not to be afraid to tackle problems outside of your scope of experience. So originally I wanted to do Spotify for my case study because Spotify is an application I use on a daily basis, and I'm quite comfortable with the interface, and I really like using Spotify, so I wanted to do Spotify at first. But I've always wanted to do a case study on League just because I spent a lot of time, or have spent a lot of time on the game, and ultimately I think in the future I do want to. It'd be really cool to work in the gaming industry. So I actually just, after talking to Jen, I actually just kind of switched up and decided to try League. And I think one of my fears at first was that like my lack of experience when it comes to kind of designing game elements, it's quite different from like other platforms like social medias and stuff. So overall, like the video game design elements kind of like scared me because I've never really had any experience with that. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Wait, sorry, I'm gonna type in this last thing. Okay. All right, so thank you, Tracy. Great job on your first presentation. You're gonna get more and more confident, so you're off to a really great start. I like that you have clean, beautiful slides, limited to just a few things. I've never really seen what League actually looks like. Exactly, that was that one time I tried playing. Well, my friend put me on in the middle of this game, and then people are mad at me, so I never saw it again. So thank you for doing a good job of walking us through, having the League of Legends theme. I like how you talked about if more people feel rewarded by their growth, they'll invest more time. And like playing on this user psychology. How does League of Legends actually make money?
I think one of their main ways is that like they have a lot of like nice skins, or just like a lot of like events where you have to kind of like buy your event passes. I'd say that would be their main source, unless I could probably do more research on that though, but I would assume that is.
Yeah, I would assume that if people are more invested in their game, in the game, maybe that is that really how that's the only way they make
Yeah,
money?
like
Literally
they
people buying skins.
it's by you buying into this world, and then now your identity is that's literally there's a whole documentary on this, how League changed the whole gaming like industry by introducing this like thing of like free to play games where you have enough players that are playing that they like buy enough skins, something like that.
What? That's it? Oh my, as long as you have people, their server cost must be a lot, right? Like there's so many people playing. How do they afford it? I don't know. They're surviving. They've been around for a while, so they must be doing something. Okay, well, maybe I'm assuming like the more time they invest, the more they'll like buy skins. I think something that could I think where I was confused because I don't play League of Legends. I was confused like how does I know that if people spend more time that usually helps business metrics, but I just wasn't sure how League of Legends makes money. So you could just say like the people who tend to pay for skins are people who are more invested in the platform. And so this is one of the ways you can do that. Yeah, that could help. I also really appreciate you talking about like you stepping outside of your comfort zone and sharing that journey, talking about you not feeling comfortable with doing something you've never done before. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm really proud of you for doing this. I think something I don't think you mentioned, but I think could be helpful for everyone to know. One of the reasons why we decided to go for League of Legends, which is, I would say, like a little bit more unusual or not as usual of a case study that people choose, but it's not a bad thing. I'm proud of you for not doing what's comfortable. I do think it's easier to like just do what everyone is doing, but we're taking the jump to do what you really want to do. So I'm really proud of you for doing that. But anyhow, sorry, that didn't make sense. But there's an analytics dashboard for the League of Legends, and so thinking about how to leverage competitive insights to see how people grow and use those insights to actually get better. Yeah, areas of growth. I think just a small thing. I think he talks about competition makes people want to improve. I think we could have said people really care about the leaderboard. I think there's statuses that people really care about. Is it diamond? Is that what it's called? Yeah, my ex-boyfriend said, well, he said he was a diamond or something. He was like, I can't leave my diamond status or something. I don't know. Like, you know, I am someone who doesn't know this stuff, except for that because he was obsessed with it. But you know, like I think those are things that can help us understand like why are people so obsessed with trying to improve? They want to level up in these ways. And why do they care so much? Because actually I'm not really sure. But you probably know more than I do why people care so much about being the best at the leaderboard. It makes them feel good. Yeah, there's probably a whole psychology on this. I think other things you could have said, like how are people currently trying to improve? So I think we talked about this in calls when it's a matter of saying in your presentation. One way you can improve are stats, but these stats are extremely confusing and it's hard to interpret. And in sports and like it's common sense, but you could say like in sports, and this is pretty much a sport, right? You need to know your stats so you know where your weaknesses are, and so you invest more in those areas. But how can anyone do that if they don't even understand these graphs? So I think those are things that you could help us understand, like what are people doing to improve? Like what information are they using? Oh, well, thank you. Oh, okay. Faye, can you give feedback? Oh, sorry, Faye's typing. Yeah, I want to help you practice saying it. Okay, Faye's gonna say the feedback.
Hey, Tracy. If you haven't noticed already, Jen puts me on the spot a lot. So overall, I really liked your presentation. It was very thorough and helpful for audience members who aren't as familiar with League, like me and Jen. It was super clear what your user and business impacts were. I also like that you put some additional thought into who you're looking for in terms of your target audience, not just, you know, any person that plays League, but someone who is like actively looking to improve or has tried to improve and has failed in the past. I think one thing you can consider that may level up your exploration is so sometimes in my sketching I think through, you know, what are the you know, what's the user impact, what's the business impact if the user is able to achieve those goals. And then sometimes I flip it around and think, okay, what are those if they do not achieve their goals? So okay, like if someone for example you know, if sounds like League, it's this like whole world or this like community of like esports, right? So all of these players that aren't aren't improving, it's like depriving them of this opportunity to join this like culture, right? It's kind of like K-pop. And so Jen and I, we just went to Blackpink like a week ago. I feel like I finally understand like why like K-pop is just this big like thing, right? Like I before I was just like, oh dude, like all these blinks out here and they're like hammers. I don't understand. But man, the energy, the show, like I feel like it was just like such an initiate. Yeah, Jen's getting it right now, but yeah, so it could be this extra level of like, oh, if these people who want to improve and want to be a part of this like culture and this this world and aren't able to improve, they'll never be a part of it, you know, and that takes away from the community, takes away from, you know, the extra monetization and annoying microtransactions that, you know, League can benefit from. So yeah, you know, in your explorations, if you kind of flip it around and say, because oftentimes people are more motivated by like what they're missing out on than what they could gain. Because sometimes a lot of people are like, oh yeah, my life's pretty good right now, like why do I need League? But if you know, say like, oh shoot, it could be so much better, man, you know, I need to get on it. So that, yes, FOMO, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Faye. All right, yeah, Tracy, how do you feel about the feedback? As you soak in everything, and also how do you feel about your first presentation?
Well, yeah, first of all, thanks so much for all of your feedback. I was like trying to take notes at the side while you guys were talking, and they're all really helpful, and I'm definitely gonna like review it. Um, and yeah, I guess I was really nervous because yeah, I think this is like my first call, and you might have been able to tell that I was very nervous through my voice, but yeah, I think it was really insightful to see other people's work, and it also helps me kind of have more direction in like what I should kind of like work towards.
Okay, yay, well, you crushed it. Everyone crushed it today. So thank you. I am going to send the chat. I actually usually I think it automatically saves, but I think I forget to share it. So I will share and I'll upload a call. So good job, everyone. All right, bye.